So this is not like most of the movies I do on this channel. It's definitely not horror, and I'm not even sure I would call it a thriller. Even though that is the label it has, it is called a biographical thriller. I'm just not quite sure it's fully in there. It's very much a drama, and it deals a lot with the political side of his life and all of these. This is one of those epic kind of films that you only see every once in a while, where it's about this really important story, and it shows all the ins and outs, but it also has just the most incredible cast. I mean, the cast every performer in this is just absolutely incredible and at the top of their craft. I mean, it's got everything. I was like, hey, that's so-and-so from that movie or from that series. Like, it's really impressive, the cast that he's got here. And this goes through all the ins and outs of his life. It shows the good and the bad. It shows that this was a flawed human. He isn't perfect, but he did do some amazing things as well as create some pretty horrific things. And my opinion is a little bit skewed on this because I was able to see it at an early screener at an IMAX, and it was one of only 7 theaters to show it on actual film. So everywhere else is showing it digital. But I got to see it on film, and it was just amazing. It's my absolute favorite podcast. And recently they did a huge series, like 5-part, I believe, series on the Manhattan Project. And so it got me really invested into all of the lore and all the stories and just all the ins and outs on how the atomic bomb was developed and what happened after that and how it's affected the world as a whole, the Cold War, just all of this stuff. I've just gone down this crazy rabbit hole on YouTube watching all these different documentaries and actual footage of the bomb dropping and just a lot of stuff. So it's made me very interested in this whole story. And so I had to check this movie out. And I thought about it this way. Even though I wouldn't call this horror, and I'm not even sure I'd label it thriller, it's kind of fringe into that area. But it's about the most horrific incident that a man has caused on another man, really in human history. The fence, if you believe we had to do it, or if you believe that it really didn't need to be done. And, anyway, I'm not trying to get into all that political side of if we should have or shouldn't have or any of that. But you can't argue that this is real horror in a lot of ways, and so I wanted to cover it. But that also leads into where I was disappointed a little bit with this movie, because as amazing as the dialogue is and as pretty close to true events, at least as far as we know, they were able to stick to it. I mean, this really is pretty damn close to what actually happened. There's a few things here and there, but a lot of it is kind of questionable, two sides of a coin. No one really knows 100%, that kind of thing. But for the most part, they stuck pretty closely to what really took place and who Robert Oppenheimer was, or at least what we believe he was. And I appreciate all that. I appreciate the acting. The way this movie is shot is incredible. Christopher Nolan is just one of the most amazing filmmakers, epic and amazing and beautiful about this movie, and powerful and emotional and just all those things. But I felt like they didn't go quite hard enough. I wanted to see Christopher Nolan take it just that much further. It felt like there was too much of this movie that was trying to be for mainstream audiences, and I get that. This is a lot of money, and you can see the money on the screen. I mean, you can really see these amazing special effects, and they're really just unbelievably impressive. But I wish they had gone harder. I wish they had shown more of why Robert Oppenheimer was so against nuclear weapons by the end of his life, and why he petitioned for us to not go forward with other types of bigger, more powerful bombs. Because he was so moved by what happened, and when he saw what he had been a part of, I mean, what the bomb actually, he pushed as hard as he could in a lot of ways to try to make this not happen again, and I think in a lot of ways to cleanse his soul the best he could. He felt guilty until the day he died, and honestly, he should have, because this bomb and what it did is horrific. But, and just the everyday life of the Japanese, how it affected them. And we, as a country, joyously celebrated after the bomb dropped. But then as things started to sink in, and we started to see the photography and hear about what actually had happened and what weapons were, and helped kind of slow down that roll. And yes, the Cold War happened, but nobody was out there trying to say, hey, let's bomb again, let's blow up everybody else. And I think they just needed to show that, because this movie is very much from Oppenheimer's kind of point of view, and it really only shows what he was directly connected to and part of. So it doesn't show what happens with the bomb and all of that. The only bomb footage you really see is when they did the Trinity, which is the only thing that Oppenheimer saw, and that was amazing, and nobody died, and that's great. And the way that's shot and the way that's shown in this is incredible. But I just feel like they could have pushed a little bit harder, and it would have, at least for me, I'm not saying gore, but just to show the tragedy of it and the ramifications of it. But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for watching this. If you enjoyed this, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel. And when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this every single week. I also want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members. If you would like to help out this channel and find out how to become a patron, there's a link down in the description. Or if you'd like to become a channel member, there's a button right down there that says join. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button, and remember guys, horror can be fun! And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch another review. And I'll see you guys next time!